Welcome to the latest Autovista Group Insights episode, where we look in depth at some of the biggest topics and challenges facing the automotive industry. In this edition, we're revisiting a subject we first covered almost a year ago, one that has been ongoing for over 4 years and is still causing uncertainty today. Of course, I'm talking about Brexit. I'm joined by Anthony Machin, Head of Content and Product at Glasses, and Neil King, Senior Data Journalist at Autovista Group. Thank you both for joining me.
Hello.
You're welcome. Nice to see you both.
Now, the UK officially left the European Union on the 31st of January 2020. However, at that time, it began a transition process, keeping it in the customs union and upholding European legislation. This arrangement ends on the 31st of December 2020, and by then, the UK government hopes to have a trade deal in place or having reviewed and implemented legislation covering a range of subjects. Yet this transitional period has done little to ease the feeling of uncertainty as to what type of Brexit will occur. With this in mind, guys, I'd like to ask you a question. Overall, what is the likely impact of a no-deal Brexit on the automotive industry?
If I take this one first, I think effectively we could be looking at some kind of potential catastrophe, really. There's no other industry that's really as more tightly integrated as the automotive industry. We've got complex supply chains stretching across Europe for going both ways. We also look at just-in-time delivery, especially for the manufacturing part of it, whether those factories are in the UK or whether those factories are in the rest of Europe. Today, within the UK and EU automotive industries, they are tightly interwoven. So 51% of all exported UK cars are bought by EU customers. That was in 2019. And 8 out of 10 passenger cars made in the UK are actually exported. There's only 2 out of 10 kept in the UK. Well, if we look at it the other way around, when we're importing stuff out of Europe, less than 4 in 10 cars made in the EU 27 countries are actually exported, and we only take around 1/3 of those exports, about 12.4% of production. So any slowdown in what's happening in terms of border control, any increases in prices due to tariffs and those kinds of things will really affect UK car production, both for the suppliers and the main OEMs, but also for the customers. The customers will be the ones that really have to spend that extra money. Neil, what are your thoughts?
I focus more so on the new car market itself and the demand side. Obviously, you talked there about the limited share of the EU exports that we take, but obviously the UK, like all other markets, has been adversely affected this year. It was in the doldrums essentially from March till till dealers could reopen, which was fundamentally in June and also in July. Not surprisingly, like most markets, we did enjoy a sort of a recovery phase as all that pent-up demand was realised in July. But as many of our viewers have, I'm sure, already seen, as we reported the other day, registrations fell again already by 5.8% in August. Now, obviously, there are so many question marks over whether there will be a second wave of coronavirus, what impact that could have. And obviously, that alone doesn't really bode well for, the remaining months of the year. As it stands, August, the numbers came in pretty much exactly as expected. I called about 90,000 units, and that's more or less where we were at. So we've had no reason to change our forecast as it stands. But even so, we're still, looking at the market being down 30% this year. But to sort of, answer more directly your question on my thoughts of a no-deal Brexit, I think, I'd sort of kind of draw our attention more so to what I call the downside scenario, whereby we're obviously still assuming ongoing disruption to registrations, but ultimately, we could be looking at a loss of around 900,000 units compared to last year, and with limited opportunity for recovery. And obviously, with Brexit taking hold and that increased likelihood of a no-deal Brexit, ultimately the downside scenario now is looking at registrations being down more like 35%. That's just under 1.5 million units. The only thing I would say to her, there's two schools of thoughts on this. Obviously, in a weird way, if there's a no-deal Brexit, there is a slightly positive element this year whereby even just the mere threat of tariffs coming in means buyers may well rush to buy new cars towards the tail end of this year, before obviously those tariffs come into effect as of January.
And what about used cars? What would be the impact on the used car market?
Used cars is an interesting one. I mean, obviously, the UK is quite lagged as far as release of official used car registration data is concerned, but across the first half of 2020, in the UK, as happened across all the major European markets, used cars were down about 28.7% in the first half. Obviously, compared to the new car market being down almost 50%. Although that has recovered, obviously, to a decline of about sort of 40% in the year to date. So I think the general assumption is that, especially as consumers tighten their belts, and we've seen this in the past, that used car markets will generally fare better, and that's certainly true for the UK. And I suspect that sort of improved performance of the used car market relative to a new car market will be even more pronounced in the case of a no-deal Brexit, especially as there are questions over tariffs and even supply. I don't know what your thoughts were on that, Anthony.
I think the biggest problem for both new and used is going to be supply.
Yeah.
And that's the case today. Now, September could potentially have been one of the biggest months ever. Never mind this year, but the biggest months ever. And I think with logistical issues coming out of Europe, plus the constraints on supply because of factories slow down because of social distancing and that kind of thing, supply is going to be constrained. If we kind of go further into the rest of the year, it's likely that that's going to continue. That's going to drive stocking issues of used cars, because we're not going to see as many part exchanges, because people are either not taking their 70 plate, the new plated vehicle in the UK from September, and they're not looking at necessarily changing straight away, although there is that demand still there. Now, where part exchanges are occurring, those vehicles are likely to stay within their franchise network if they're ready to retail. So if they're sort of between 1 and 3 years old, they're likely to stay within there. So we're not going to see those in the wholesale market, which is going to drive a lower supply through wholesale and drive some of those values up even further than they are today. Now, if this continues going into next year, when we come across Brexit, it's likely that social distancing will continue, although hopefully less so in the factories. Factories may be able to ramp up a little bit, but are they going to be looking at selling cars into the UK and importing cars into the UK? Well, there are possibilities, and yes, we've already been warned by the government that we should expect long border queues and persistent delays for at least 6 months or longer if we don't secure a deal. But it's those tariffs and the WTO tariffs that will put on around 10% of imports. So, just expect the average price of a UK car sold in the UK to go up by €3,000, and then vice versa. It's likely to be something similar in the UK on average. It's going to drive RVs upwards, certainly for the nearly new cars, because they're going to look at so much better values than the new cars. But I still think supply is going to be key. And if we can't get hold of that supply for UK dealers to sell new vehicles, then we're going to see real hits on the total volume through the rest of next year.
So in your opinions, what would help your UK automotive industry in terms of a deal?
If I go first, Neil, I think if we have an ambition to look at how we can really bring a deal onto the table, European automotive is so deeply integrated in the UK and Europe, and it's probably one of our most valuable assets. I mean, just looking at what the SMMT have put their hands up for, and I think across a lot of the trade bodies, we really need the zero tariffs. I mean, we've got zero tariffs today, and it works perfectly for automotive and many other industries, but automotive is just fantastic because those, we talked briefly about the parts passing borders several times. Cars can do the same thing as well. and just having that additional cost added to the car, it will just depress the market significantly. If we look at regulations moving forward, and we have a framework for those regulations and have cooperation and dialogue moving forward, that would be a great thing today to do and to deliver. But the border control and the border crossings are going to be key. And if we can minimize friction at those borders, so we don't have those enormous delays for parts, for people and for parts, really, and then the finished product, then we can continue the trade and continue to build automotive and really deliver. You know, after COVID, we need to deliver a real positive for the UK economy, and the automotive industry is poised to be able to do that. But with a no-deal Brexit is going to hamper the growth and return to economic sense for the industry.
Yeah, I was just to add to that briefly, really. I mean, obviously, you mentioned the potential delays as far as border checks are concerned, and you know, aside from tariffs, you know, the other issue, of course, is that the industry operates on a just-in-time basis. And you know, if just, you know, typically, as we all know, a typical car has about 30,000 moving parts. And if just one part is delayed at the border, doesn't get to the line in time, the whole line grinds to a halt. And you know, that has obviously massive implications for UK automotive factories. But bear in mind, it will also have implications for European plants that are relying on components exported from the UK into the EU as well.
Okay, brilliant. Guys, thank you very much for joining me. That's all we've got time for. I would like to remind you that you can sign up to the AutoVista Group Daily Brief, where you can get the latest news and industry insights delivered directly to your email inbox. Just visit autovistagroup.com/sign up. You can also follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn. Details are on screen. And don't forget to subscribe to the AutoVista Group Daily Brief YouTube channel to keep updated with our latest video content. But for now, thanks for watching.